The devastating secret of female giants, what the Bible didn't tell you at midnight. The clock struck 12, and a hush fell over the desolate town of Hollow Creek. Shadows danced against the pale moonlight, casting eerie forms on the cracked sidewalks. It was the witching hour, and an ancient secret was about to unfold. Whispers of female giants, a term that echoed through folklore and fables, had surfaced again. But these weren't mere myths. They were the chilling reality hidden from humanity. 16 feet tall, with thick, sinewy muscles that rippled beneath their skin, these women roamed silently under the cover of darkness. Yet, they didn't just walk, they moved with a grace that defied their size. Some locals claimed to have seen them in their dreams, towering figures draped in flowing robes, glowing with an otherworldly light. The air felt electric whenever the tales began, and the town buzzed with a mix of fear and fascination. What did they want? What were they guarding? As the night deepened, a storm brewed overhead. Rolling thunder seemed to echo the tension in the air. The ground vibrated with an unseen energy, sending shivers down the spine of anyone brave enough to step outside. People locked their doors, peered through their curtains, hearts racing, as the rumors grew stronger. They said the giants were drawn to those with hidden truths, secrets that could shake the very foundation of what they believed. Then, just as quickly as it began, the tension escalated. A blood-curdling scream pierced the air, sending ripples of terror through the town. People rushed to their windows. A figure stood there, shrouded in shadows, eyes wide and filled with horror. "They're coming!" she gasped, words barely escaping her trembling lips. The collective gasp from the onlookers was palpable, a tight knot in every chest. Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the wind howled, the figure stepped forward, revealing a flash of golden hair that glinted like armor in the residual moonlight. I saw them. They're searching for something lost. Her voice trembled, like leaves caught in a gust, alive with secrets begging to be told. The town stared in disbelief. Who was she? What had she seen? And what truth were the giants seeking that night? Night after night, the rumors had only heightened the fear. But what if the giants were more than just protectors of an ancient truth? What if there was something even darker lurking beyond their colossal forms? As a definite chill swept through Hollow Creek, the townsfolk found themselves teetering on the edge of dread, an edge where knowledge and ignorance danced perilously close. What happened next could shatter everything they believed, and they were about to find out just how deep the rabbit hole really went. The air crackled with tension as the townsfolk took a collective step back, their hearts pounding like war drums. The woman's frantic cries echoed in their ears, igniting a visceral blend of fear and curiosity. Who was she? Why had she come with such urgency? To some, she looked like a savior, while to others, she was just another bearer of doom. Someone grab her! A voice shouted from inside one of the dimly lit houses, breaking the frozen moment. But no one moved. Fear held them in place, as shadows flitted across the town, growing bolder as the wind picked up. The storm above seemed to roar in agreement. Nature itself was unsettled by what was unfolding. Please! She implored, her hands clasped together as if in prayer. You don't understand. They know. They know everything. Her eyes darted left and right, searching for some semblance of understanding. What do they know? Someone yelled back, desperation tainting the question. They know about the birthright, she gasped, her voice barely rising above the howling wind. About what was taken from them generations ago. They are coming for retribution. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, a nervous energy palpable in the air. The birthright? The very word sent shivers down their spines. It sounded ancient, buried deep under layers of history that the townsfolk had never bothered to unearth. Revenge for what? Another voice shot back, breaking the hesitant silence. What do we have to do with it? We're just people. A flash of lightning illuminated her terrified expression, momentarily lifting the dark veil that surrounded her. The fear in her eyes only deepened the uncertainty. A cold sweat trickled down her temple as she looked up, scanning the tree-line that bordered Hollow Creek. They were watching. Every one of you has something to atone for, she whispered. The revelation hung in the air, heavy as lead. Confusion had transformed into something much darker, paranoia. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath them. Not just the whispers of the wind or the drums of lightning, something far larger was moving towards them. Look! Someone screamed, pointing towards the horizon. In the distance, the silhouettes of colossal figures became visible against the darkened sky, their forms towering against the stars. With every step they took, the earth shook more violently. Get inside. Barricade the doors. Another whispered frantically, but something kept them rooted to the spot. Each giant moved with an eerie rhythm, their glowing eyes piercing through the darkness, searching. What are they seeking? The golden-haired woman cried out, her voice almost lost in the chaos. They want to find their past. Their stolen lineage. With each passing second, the giants approached, their features becoming clearer under the foreboding storm. The townspeople gasped collectively. It was as if they were gazing into a myth come to life, eyes wide with both awe and terror. But as the giants drew near, the palpable fear morphed into something darker and unrecognizable foreboding that gripped the heart. The crowd's breath became shallow, a shared intake as they braced for collision. Then came the thundering voice of the massive form leading the group. Return what was taken. She boomed, words echoing like an ominous bell. Or face the consequences. Fear held Hollow Creek in a vice grip, and as the giants approached, the question loomed larger than life itself: what hidden secrets were buried within their bloodlines? The night had just begun to reveal its horrors, and they were poised to uncover the true reason the giants had come. What were they really after? The ground shook again, and with it, the hearts of the townsfolk quickened, their collective breaths hitching in fear. With each echoing footfall, the towering giants loomed closer, their silhouettes casting deep shadows on the cobblestone streets of Hollow Creek. The villagers' faces went pale, reflecting the wild, flickering light of the storm above. Run! Someone yelled, breaking the spell that had kept them frozen, but chaos surged through the crowd. People screamed, darting left and right, desperate to distance themselves from the advancing terrors. The golden-haired woman stood her ground, watched wide-eyed as the giants drew nearer. She had to stop them, she simply had to. Wait! You must listen. She shouted, but her voice was lost in the cacophony. Thunder cracked, blotting out her words and shaking the very foundations of their fears. One of the giants, a massive figure with eyes like glowing coals, paused as if he had heard her. He looked down, narrowing his fierce gaze on her, and in that moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Speak, he commanded, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through the air and rattled the windows of the nearest homes. The ground trembled again, but this time, it was not just fear that shook the earth, it was authority. Please, there's been a mistake. We don't know anything about your birthright. She shouted, falling to her knees in the dirt. Help us remember. Help us find the truth. The giants loomed overhead, colossal and commanding, but with those glowing eyes softened, she sensed a flicker of something more: vulnerability. Truth, the leading giant murmured, almost thoughtfully. For too long, the truth has been shrouded in darkness. The crowd quieted, trembling but captivated, absorbed in the exchange. The golden-haired woman glimpsed a long-forgotten memory in the giantess' gaze, the trace of secrets buried deep, a reminder of their shared history. We can help, she whispered, her voice firming. Let us uncover it together. Behind her, townsfolk exchanged glances, shock and curiosity battling for dominance in their expressions. They had never considered that they could work alongside such beings. Who were they, really? And what had they unearthed from the depths of the past? The giant inclined his head, and for a heartbeat, it seemed as if the world around them faded, leaving only the colossal figure and the determined woman. You would barter with us? For the lifeblood of your ancestors? His voice rolled forward, rich with history. Then gather your kin, the path will demand your courage. As he spoke, a sudden gale howled around them, reminding all present of the storm's menace. An ominous sense of dread settled like a weight in their hearts. What do we need to do? She finally asked, determination burning in her chest. You must descend into the valley beneath the roots of the old oak, he explained, voice carrying the weight of an ancient prophecy. The answers you seek lie in the past you have forgotten. An unsettling silence fell over the gathering, filled with the rumble of thunder and the sharp crack of lightning. Fearful glances were exchanged as the implication of the giant's words sunk deep. The old oak. It was said to guard the very first covenant. But, it's cursed, a voice murmured from the back of the crowd, only to be met with harsh whispers and fearful mutterings. Cursed. The giant's eyes widened. You dwell in superstition when the truth is your salvation. A flicker of hope momentarily pierced the cloud hanging over Hollow Creek, but it was quickly snuffed out by encroaching dread. They all felt it, an inevitable conclusion looming on the horizon. The giants began to move again, a synchronized shift of their weight sending chills down the townsfolk's spines. Time was running out. What if we fail? The golden-haired woman called desperately, clutching the fabric of her dress like a lifeline. Then perhaps all will remain lost, he replied. For centuries. The gravity of their task weighed upon her. They had always looked to escape from the past. But now, the giants had thrust them into a fate from which there was no turning back. As the giants turned their backs, shadows stretching long into the dark, the realization struck like lightning: they were no longer just townsfolk of Hollow Creek, they were now part of something infinitely larger, a reckoning. And as the thunder rumbled once more above, certainty gripped her heart. One question echoed in the charged air: what buried truths awaited them in the valley, and would they have the courage to face them? The night had only begun to shroud them in its mysteries, and Hollow Creek was but the beginning of an awakening that would ripple through time itself. The air crackled with anticipation as the giants receded, their enormous forms silhouetted against the wild storm that raged around Hollow Creek. With every rumble of thunder, the ground beneath the townsfolk felt a little less solid. Hearts thrummed like war drums, quickening at the thought of their impending journey. Is anyone else out of their minds right now? A man near the front called out, his voice breaking through the murmurs. More heads turned, their eyes questioning. We're going to seek answers from a cursed oak. What if it's worse than the giants? His face twisted in a grimace of fear, and rightly so. One could still see the shadow of the giants stretching behind them like looming giants from stories best forgotten. Cursed or not, we have to try, the golden-haired woman said, her voice rising above the swirling anxiety. With bated breath, the crowd leaned in, her determination igniting a flicker of hope. We need to remember who we are. This could be our only chance. As the murmur of agreement spread, she felt the tightening knot in her stomach ease just a bit. They were scared, yes, but also now united. Then let us make haste, she urged, gesturing toward the path leading to the ancient old oak. The air grew thick with dread, yet there was also a budding sense of purpose. With hearts pounding, they set off, their silhouettes merging with the darkness, tracing the winding path that led into the forest. Lightning flashed briefly, illuminating the way ahead. The trees seemed to whisper anxious secrets as the wind picked up, branches thrashing against one another. The forest quickly swallowed them whole, and a profound silence draped over the group. The sound of their footfalls echoed against the hallowed earth, while the faint scent of damp soil mingled with the electric tang of the storm. The tension rippled through them as they approached their destination, the gnarled roots of the old oak stretching out like ancient hands reaching for the sky. The trunk was massive, veined with deep cracks that resembled the lines of old maps, perhaps marking the passage of forgotten timelines. Suddenly, a low growl rolled through the trees, vibrating the ground beneath their feet. The group froze, fear creeping up their spines. Animal or spirit, they couldn't tell. Maybe it's the curse trying to warn us, one villager whispered, backing away, his face a mask of terror. Or perhaps it's our ancestors, another countered, voice trembling with excitement, guarding the truth we seek. The golden-haired woman pressed on. We have to keep moving. She stepped forward, reaching out to touch the oak's ancient bark. It felt alive, warm beneath her fingertips, and a surge of memories ignited flashes of laughter, of families united under its branches, long before the darkness crept over them. She shuddered, her resolve firming. I can feel it, she said, her voice trembling with energy. We're on the brink of something. The past is waiting for us. But before she could take a step deeper into the shadow of the tree, a mighty wind swelled, swirling leaves and debris around them like a chaotic dance. An enormous crack like the sound of bones snapping split the air, leaving the group in frozen horror. Get back! Someone screamed, but it was too late. The ground quaked, and from beneath the roots, a beam of brilliant light burst forth, illuminating the forest in a blinding glow. The townsfolk shielded their eyes, hearts racing as the very air seemed to hum with power. They could feel it, the undeniable call of the truth they had buried deep within. What is it? A woman cried, gasping as shadows danced in the light. I don't know. The golden-haired woman shouted above the chaos, her initial bravery now pulsing with fear as that beam grew stronger. But we have to find out. Gather your courage. As the villagers shielded their eyes from the dazzling brightness, the light flickered, momentarily revealing a figure, half obscured by the shadows. A giant, but not of flesh, a spirit glowing with the essence of the past, eyes shimmering like diamonds, reflecting the weight of countless epochs. Face your lineage, the voice echoed through the trees. To awaken the truths lost in time, what reason do you seek? The question loomed in the air, but the answer lay buried beneath layers of secrets and fears, waiting to intertwine the fates of ghosts and the living. Were they ready for what awaited them, or would the giant's curse reclaim them? The fate of Hollow Creek hung in the balance, shrouded in obscured truths as the thunder erupted once more, announcing that the night was still far from over. The beam of light reached a crescendo, illuminating the very essence of Hollow Creek. Gasps filled the air, a chorus of disbelief mixed with sheer awe. Shadows twisted and danced, warping the villagers' faces into grim portrayals of terror and wonder. The golden-haired woman stood frozen, her heart pounding like a drum. Why have you come? The spirit's voice resonated, each word echoing in their minds. It wasn't just a question, it felt like a challenge, a test of their very souls. We seek the truth. She blurted, her voice steadier than she felt. We want to break the curse that plagues our home, to know our past. The pale figure within the light shifted, the ethereal glow creating and reshaping its form. Truth carries weight, it intoned, a dissonance rippling in the air. It binds, but it also frees. To uncover it, you must confront what is hidden, the devastation wrought by your ancestors. The wind howled, a sharp reminder of the storm outside. A collective shiver ran through the group. They could feel it now, a dark current threading its way through their shared history. The townsfolk exchanged uneasy glances, eyes reflecting deep-rooted fear. What had their families done? What do you mean? A man stammered, stepping closer, his voice quivering. Long ago, secrets were buried beneath these roots, the spirit continued, its form shifting with each syllable. A pact was made to protect you from the giants, but their legacy continues haunting your dreams, festering like a wound. Another rumble echoed through the trees, sending shockwaves into the ground. The giants? What do they have to do with us? Someone shouted, desperation dripping from their words. They are your kin and your curse. You emerge from a line of women who chose power under the guise of protection, the spirit replied, eyes like piercing stars locking onto theirs. But strength unchecked breeds devastation. A murmur of dread swept through the crowd. What does that mean? The golden-haired woman pressed. What devastation! The giants were not just guardians, they were a warning, a consequence of choices made. You must relinquish what you've inherited to restore balance, the spirit explained, the light pulsating with urgency. The air thickened, pressing against their chests, suffocating and alive with impending revelations. Relinquish? How? She gasped, her mind racing. Face the one who wields the greatest power among you, the figure whispered. A sacrifice must be made, or you risk losing everything you hold dear. As if summoned by the words of the spirit, shadows rippled from the woods beyond and crashed into the clearing, long-lost fears materializing into grotesque visions of their past. Faces twisted in agony and betrayal flashed before them, haunting yet familiar, the golden-haired woman's breath caught in her throat. Fear consumed her as recognition flooded her thoughts. She wasn't just seeking answers, it felt like she was being led to confront painful truths buried too deep. Look! Somebody cried, pointing towards a flicker in the darkness. A colossal figure burst through the trees, its silhouette outlined against the dim light, even larger than before. Thunder cracked overhead, and the spirit's eyes shone like suns. The moment crystallized. They faced more than just a mystery, their own legacies, tangled and entwined, twisted into something monstrous. Would they break the chains of their past, or would they succumb to the spirit's vengeful grasp? With hearts hammering, they sensed a reckoning. The air vibrated with the intensity of the obscured answers. But then, just as quickly as it began, the spirit's light flickered and dimmed, casting them back into shadows. Silence replaced the echoes of its voice, leaving the townsfolk caught in dread. Do we run? Or do we stand? Her words lingered in the thick gloom. But one question reverberated in her mind louder than the beat of thunder: how much were they willing to pay for the truth? As night deepened around them, the mystery clawed at their hearts, a haunting reminder that not every truth set you free. And all the while, the storm continued to moan, a dark prelude to the impending choice they had yet to make. The colossal figure stepped into the light, revealing itself to be a massive woman, her features illuminated in haunting detail. Her hair flowed like dark tendrils of smoke around a face that seemed both ancient and painfully familiar. The air stagnated as the villagers took an involuntary collective step back, instinctively sensing the weight of her presence. Do not fear me, she boomed, her voice resonating like thunder in the clearing. I am one of the giants you have feared, and I have come to guide you through your own reckoning. The golden-haired woman's heart raced. But you're supposed to be a curse. A monster. Perhaps, the giant replied, tilting her head, a playful grin splitting her features. But monsters can wear many faces. Just like you. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some clutched their children as if the storm had morphed into something far more terrifying than they'd anticipated. The storm's howl mingled with the rising tension in the air, each gust a reminder of their looming choices. Stop! A man shouted, fear twisting his features. You can't make us believe that we're connected to you. We're nothing like you. Or are you? The giant stepped forward, her footfall shaking the ground beneath them, as if each step threatened to unravel their very existence. Look into the echoes of your past. You are shaped by what you inherit, both good and bad. In utter silence, the villagers stood frozen, their faces pale. The golden-haired woman felt dizzy. A storm of emotions swirled within her, crashing together like waves against a rocky shore. Could they really be tied to such a monstrous legacy? You must choose. The giant declared, the light shifting dramatically to make her appear even more menacing. Accept the power you were born into, or deny it, allowing the shadows to devour all you cherish. What power? What shadows? She asked, voice trembling, fighting against the chaos brewing in her mind. The darkest secrets of your lineage. The giant stretched out her arms, and when fragments of lost memories began to bloom within the faces of the villagers, the resonance of their past flooded back. Whispers of betrayal, songs of sacrifice, and cries of pain echoed in a cacophony of anguish. Do you not see? The giant took a threatening step again, eyes burning with intensity. The power you possess can restore balance. But to use it, you must embrace not just your strength but also your fears, those demons you keep buried beneath your surface. Frantic murmurs fluttered among the townsfolk. A woman near the front, eyes wide with terror, began to tremble. What if it consumes us? What then? Then you will witness the true devastation. The giant's face grew somber, a heavy fog settling over her words. Balance will only be restored through sacrifice, a shedding of your ties to ignorance and fear. The golden-haired woman felt her stomach twist. The weight of the choice ahead felt unbearable, like a noose tightening around her neck. Dare she confront what her ancestors had set in motion? Suddenly, the storm paused, a breath of stillness falling over Hollow Creek. The villagers held their breath, suspended between fear and an unquenchable thirst for the truth. Then she turned towards the golden-haired woman, eyes piercing through her hesitation. It will begin with you. Are you ready to face what you've inherited? Her heart thundered in her chest, each beat a question of its own. She thought of her loved ones, of everything she held dear, and felt the tension rise. Would she confront her lineage or flee into the night, the shadows waiting patiently to reclaim what they were owed? As she opened her mouth to respond, another bolt of lightning lit up the sky, revealing the faces of her ancestors hovering behind the giant, lost souls locked in time, caught between vengeance and salvation. The revelation slammed into her, shaking her resolve further. The choice loomed ahead, dark and twisted. Would she step into the abyss and reclaim her legacy, or would the shadows of the past swallow them whole? The air crackled once more with tension, and an unsettling silence filled the clearing, the storm holding its breath. With a beat of thunder echoing in the distance, the golden-haired woman felt all eyes upon her, a weight that pressed heavily on her shoulders. Each villager seemed to transform into a mirror reflecting her fears. The giant narrowed her gaze, a stillness in her expression that suggested time itself was waiting for the young woman's answer. What choice do I have? She breathed, feeling her voice waver. Am I truly connected to this darkness? Your bloodline flows with both light and shadow, the giant said, the shadows around her seeming to twist and flicker in response to her words. To understand who you are, you must embrace both. Images flickered in her mind, visions of ancestors she had never met, a woman lost in sorrow, staring into an unfathomable abyss, a warrior, fierce yet broken, standing amongst crumbled ruins, a child, crying as shadows consumed the laughter around her. Each image tugged at her heart, stirring a storm of dread and confusion. Why should I believe you? She shouted, desperation creeping into her voice as she looked around at the fearful faces of her friends and family. The storm intensified, fat raindrops beginning to fall as if nature itself was reacting to the escalating tension. Because the truth is never without its cost, the giant replied solemnly, her words echoing in the tense air. Every generation faces its reckoning. Yours is simply more visceral. As the weight of her words seeped into the villager's consciousness, the golden-haired woman felt her heart constrict. The thought of unleashing whatever dark legacy lurked within terrified her. Would she be a beacon of hope or simply a force for destruction? What if, she stammered, raw emotion bubbling to the surface, what if it destroys everything we've fought for? What if it destroys me? The giant leaned closer, her towering form casting a long shadow that engulfed the golden-haired woman. You already walk the line between fear and strength. It's in your reaction that the past will reveal its secrets. Will you embrace it? Just then, a violent wind whipped through the clearing, scattering leaves like lost stories. A figure emerged from the tumult, a small boy, barely 10, racing through the darkening landscape, eyes wide with terror. Help! Help! They're coming! He cried, cheeks streaked with dirt and fear. A ripple of panic surged through the villagers. Gasps echoed as eyes darted toward the darkness at the edge of the clearing, where the storm hung like a monstrous shroud, shadows slithering and writhed beneath the towering trees. Who is coming? Shouted one mother, clenching her child's hand as the boy stumbled forward, breathless. I saw them. The shadows, they're angry. They want the power. His voice cut through the air, rising above the howling wind. The giant turned, gaze blazing. Then your time grows short, golden-haired one. Choose quickly. Will you stand against the shadows or lay down your legacy, letting them consume your village? The golden-haired woman felt like she was being pulled in two directions. The weight of her ancestors' sins weighed heavy on her spirit, yet a glimmer of hope flickered within her heart, ignited by the innocent child's terror. With a sudden realization, she understood. If she faced her fears, she would not only confront the darkness but also harness the very power that could save them. Tell me what I must do. She cried, her voice rising defiantly against the elements. The giant smiled, a fierce glimmer lighting her eyes. So it begins. Just then, the ground trembled, and a blood-freezing wail echoed from the depths of the storm, a warning. The shadows surged toward them, primal and alive with hunger. The golden-haired woman's heart raced. Would she find the strength to fight, or would the shadows swallow them whole? As the night deepened, the storm closed in, and she took a step forward, ready to plunge into the unknown. But then a figure appeared in the gloom, one more sinister than the giant, and fear clawed at the edges of her resolve. The figure stepped closer, revealing a face twisted with malice and power. The golden-haired woman's breath caught in her throat as she recognized those eyes. They were dark, swirling orbs filled with the memory of past sorrows. This was no ordinary being, it was a shadow come to life. Did you think you could hide from me? The figure hissed, the voice slithering like a whispering breeze turned cold. You, who carry the weight of your ancestors. You are but a candle in the storm, flickering against a hurricane. The villagers recoiled, a palpable wave of fear rippling through the crowd. The child's grip on his mother's hand tightened, and she squeezed back, but hope was leaking away like the warmth from the air. The golden-haired woman stood frozen, her thoughts racing. The storm worsened, casting jagged shadows that danced menacingly around them. No! She shouted, summoning the remnants of her courage. I will not succumb to the darkness. I will discover the truth. Discover? The figure laughed, an unsettling sound that sliced through the rising wind. You think that knowledge will save you? The shadows are hungry, and they will devour you whole. The giant's voice thundered with authority, breaking the dark tension. Hold your ground, golden-haired one. You possess more power than you realize. Your heritage is both a gift and a curse, but it is far from your doom. Feeling the weight of their eyes, the woman glanced at the villagers, each face reflecting a mix of desperation and expectation. What must I do? She called again, this time with a confidence she didn't fully possess. The shadowy figure shimmered and faded, only to reappear behind the giant, an extension of the darkness itself. You foolish girl, it sneered, brushing against the giant's form like smoke that threatened to consume. This is your reckoning. Embrace your lineage and plunge into the abyss. Everything twisted in an instant. The air crackled with electricity as the skies opened, unleashing a torrential downpour that soaked them to the bone. The villagers huddled together, eyes darting toward the ominous horizon where bladed shadows writhed with insatiable hunger. The child whimpered, and the golden-haired woman felt a familiar pang deep within her, her need to protect. No! She shouted, raising her hand as if she could physically push back the encroaching darkness. I'm not afraid. Not anymore. With her heart pounding, she stepped forward, summoning the memories of her ancestors, their sorrows and their struggles, feeling their pain flow through her veins. They were not lost to her, they lived on within her, fighting alongside. Together, we can transcend this darkness. She cried, her voice clear and powerful, overwhelming the howling wind. The giant nodded, a fierce light sparking in her eyes. Let your blood ignite. You are the bridge between this world and the abyss. Find your strength. Just as she felt the shadows begin to retreat, the sinister figure lunged forward, an outstretched hand clawing for her essence. The golden-haired woman's instinct kicked in. She closed her eyes, focusing on the light that intertwined with her shadow, igniting a blazing warmth deep inside her, but before she could unleash that power, a deafening crack of thunder split the sky, and the earth beneath her began to shake violently. "What is happening?" she screamed, panic flooding her senses. The storm was not just a storm, it was a manifestation of the shadow's rage, threatening to swallow them whole. "Hold on to your resolve!" shouted the giant, her voice barely audible over the tempest. The wind howled like a maddened beast, yet within the chaos, the golden-haired woman felt a flicker of clarity. Deep within the maelstrom, the shadows returned, hungry and relentless. She fought to hold her ground, but the earth still trembled beneath her feet, and in that moment of turmoil, the boy's eyes met hers filled with tears but also a fierce glimmer of hope. "Together!" he cried, shaking off the fear. His voice rang out like a bell through the storm, igniting a spark inside her. Would she dare trust in that child's hope to fight the consuming darkness? Just then, the shadows lunged once more, a swarm of nothingness, ready to devour her whole. "What will you choose?" whispered the figure, its form flickering in the corner of her eyes. The storm raged and the shadows converged. She faced the swirling depths of her destiny, standing on the precipice of despair or salvation. Will she become the light that cuts through the dark? Or will she succumb to the shadows, losing everything in the process? Lightning slashed across the sky, illuminating the figure's face in fleeting moments of stark clarity. The woman's heart raced as she felt the surge of emotions collide within her. This was not just about her anymore, it was about everyone she loved. The villagers stood rooted in fear, but glimmers of bravery began to pierce through the darkness among them. The shadows drew closer, swirling and swirling like 1,000 angry souls converging for revenge. Each flicker of the lightning revealed anguished faces trapped in the depths of despair. The golden-haired woman could feel their sorrow, their pain, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. She had to break free. "Look around," she commanded, lifting her chin defiantly. "We are not alone. We have each other. We will fight this darkness together." With those words, a murmur spread through the crowd, small but growing. The villagers looked at one another, faces shifting from terror to determination. There was an awakening, a realization that they were not powerless against the shadows. "It's true," shouted an elder, stepping forward. "Our sacrifices have kept the darkness at bay. We are bound together by our shared strength. Then let us show them." The woman cried, igniting the fire within. "Let all of our ancestors stand with us. We are their legacy." As if in response, the storm swelled, the air growing thick with energy. She felt the power of generations touch her soul, igniting a fire that blazed brighter with each passing moment. It coursed through her veins, uniting her with the giant, with the villagers, and with the very earth beneath her feet. "Together," they chanted, the sound rising triumphantly, echoing beyond the tempest. The shadows faltered, just for an instant, as though the collective strength of their voices made them waver, but the figure was quick to counter, its laughter ringing like thunder. "You're but children playing games. This is no mere storm, this is eternal darkness." The golden-haired woman squared her shoulders, refusing to relent. "Then let us embrace the power within us. We draw strength from our fears and our pain. Together, we rise." With that declaration, a wave of light erupted from her, radiating out and intertwining with the shadows. The villagers joined in, hands raised, light glowing from their palms. For a moment, it felt as if they could push back the darkness, push back the grief and despair that had haunted their lineage. The shadows shrieked as they retreated, hissing curses that twisted with anguish, but the figure reformed, more monstrous than before. "You think you can defeat me? Your light is nothing but a flicker next to the storm I command." The ground quaked violently again, throwing the villagers to the ground. The golden-haired woman felt herself being pulled backward as if the abyss had a grip on her. "Focus!" shouted the giant, forcing herself forward to stand beside the woman. "You are stronger than the chains that bind you. Remember your ancestors. Let their love empower you." The golden-haired woman grasped onto the truth of those words, grounding herself in the memories of those who had suffered for her. She couldn't let their sacrifices be in vain. Just then, the storm erupted into a cacophony of visceral screams that merged with the cries of the villagers. The shadows lashed out, fury incarnate, as tendrils reached for the woman's light. Now! She shouted, and together, they unleashed their combined power, illuminating the dark like 1,000 suns. But as the light surged, the figure screeched, "You cannot escape. The balance of shadows and light will shift, and this moment is only the beginning." The figure's words slipped into the howling wind, a chilling promise that echoed through the storm. With a final, desperate push, the golden-haired woman poured everything she had into the light. Would that be enough to break the hold of the darkness? As the storm swirled violently around them, the horizon began to shimmer. But just before the light could consume the shadows entirely, a terrible crack split the air and a new fissure opened. In the sky, dark and menacing. "What is happening?" she gasped, struggling to maintain her hold as shadows grasped around her to steal her light once again. Lost in her thoughts, she heard the boy's voice, sharp with panic. What if it's too late? Had she awakened something worse than the shadows? All hopes hung in the balance as the shadows began to twist into shapes that defied reality, and with it, the dawning realization they weren't just shadows, they were hiding something much worse. What had she inadvertently unleashed upon the world? The blinding light flickered, stuttering against the menacing darkness trying to seep through the cracks in the storm, and the golden-haired woman's breath hitched in her throat. Fear held her in a frigid grip, but the sound of the boy's desperate cries echoed in her mind, urging her to focus despite the chaos swirling around her. Together, she whispered to the villagers, sensing the urgency in their shared struggle. "We have to hold on to our hope. We can't let fear divide us." Just then, the shadows erupted, morphing into grotesque forms, twisted copies of the villagers' faces, their longing and despair magnified. A woman with fiery eyes stepped forward, her voice a chilling echo of the fears that had plagued the town for generations. "You think you can fight us, child? We are the remnants of your ancestors' pain, unyielding and vengeful." "No!" the golden-haired woman shouted defiantly, conjuring the memories of those who fought for a brighter future. "You are also a part of our past, but you don't have to be our future." The ground beneath them rumbled, a stark reminder of the storm's anger, and the villagers rallied around her. They raised their voices, chanting together, letting their collective strength merge with her resolve. "We are the bearers of our ancestors' legacy. We choose love over fear, light over darkness." The air thickened, electrifying as the shadows writhed in fury, yet the golden-haired woman felt the warmth of familial spirits rising to her side. "Feel our strength," she urged, even as her heart raced at the proximity of darkness. "Feel the love of those who came before us. It's time to reclaim our power." Brighter and brighter, their combined energy burst forth, melding into a radiant wave sweeping through the gathering. Hesitation turned into solidarity, and the villagers linked hands, harmonizing their hearts and spirits. The luminous pulse surged toward the shadows, illuminating the darkness, exposing the twisted truths hidden within. "Flee!" the shadowy figure shrieked, panic resonating through its voice. "You cannot contain what is rightfully mine." But as the light reached the dark wraiths, something shifting and deeper within those shadows started to unravel. Thrumming through the storm, the golden-haired woman felt the pulse of redemption close to her heart, a line stretching not just through her, but the fabric of their entire lineage. "I want to let you take us," she cried, unleashing a surge of willpower that enveloped the town, ricocheting through time itself, a call for unity echoing backward through the generations. In a moment of awe, the dark figure began to weaken, the twisted faces of the villagers reflecting back remorse rather than vengeance. It was then she realized that even the shadows had echoes of their suffering. It wasn't just fear that drove them, it was pain, longing for recognition, lost threads of the past wanting to be understood. With a final push, light surged through her, shining through the air like a beacon. The darkness recoiled, dissolving into reflections of every anguish and joy intertwined. The shadows whispered, "Forgive us, yes." She shouted, feeling the swell of divine connection surge through her. "We forgive. Through our love, we reclaim our bond. In that instant, as the final tendril of darkness dissipated into a flurry of sparkles, the storm quieted. A delicate hush fell over Hallow Creek, leaving the townsfolk breathless. As dawn broke, the first light of a new beginning washed over them like a warm embrace. Shocked but victorious, they glanced at one another, eyes shimmering with hope and the promise of what lay ahead. People squeezed hands and exchanged murmurs of disbelief, exclamations of the safe return of ancestors emerging from shadows into light, seemingly taken by the dawn. The golden-haired woman stood among them, filled with a whirlwind of emotions but resolute. She turned, staring at the looming silhouette of the giant who stepped forward, colors muted yet triumphant. "Together you banished the darkness," the giant boomed, pride on her face. "But this was merely the beginning. Your lineage now walks a different path. The resolve of your spirits will guide you." In the uncertainty that followed, the townsfolk felt an intricate bond tightening around them, an unyielding promise that unfurled. They were not the same anymore. They had faced their past and emerged together, united, stronger than the shadows that once loomed above. With the sun rising high, she stepped back, taking in the faces of those who once hid behind locked doors. She stepped forward, a surge of warmth flowing through her as she declared, "This is just the start. We will share our stories, our grief, our love. No more shadows. Hallow Creek will thrive together." They began to cheer, laughter spilling forth as dawn fully illuminated the town. Connections forged anew had become their armor against any future darkness. And as they breathed in the air, filled with the promise of a new dawn, tears of relief mingled with the laughter echoing through Hallow Creek, creating an unexpected symphony of hope that resonated far beyond the horizon. Now, finally united, the town had reclaimed its legacy and the giants would forever remain a part of them, from shadows transformed into guardians. This was their awakening, and the dawn of Hallow Creek had truly begun. Wait. Before you go, you need to subscribe now to our channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. We want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You're part of our journey, and your voice matters.